Hey everyone, welcome back. Have you ever wondered how it would feel if someone stalked you all the time? What if your entire privacy was taken away from you? What would you do if even your own home didn't feel safe anymore? In this story, a genius psychopath becomes obsessed with a girl, turning her entire life upside down. Let's see what happens next. The story begins by showcasing the high living standards and rising cost of living in Seoul. Considering this, people have started preferring second-hand items like washing machines, refrigerators, laptops, etc., because brand new products are very expensive, and their repair costs add an additional burden. However, with the rapid rise in the sale of second-hand products, scams associated with them have also increased drastically. Now, the story shifts to a college student. Recently, he posted that he wanted to sell his new iMac at a very low price. He received many messages from buyers, but the person selling it thought, if I have to sell it, I might as well meet a girl to sell it to. Who knows what might happen? He noticed that most of the messages were from men, which made him very frustrated. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the last message, which was from a girl. He checked her profile and immediately replied to her message, saying, I can't bring the iMac outside. Would you prefer to come to my house instead? The girl took his address and says, if everything goes well, I'll pay for the iMac on the spot and take it with me. On the other hand, we see Sue-hyeon, who works as a team lead at an interior design company. She was being scolded by her senior, because she had assigned an installation task to her team, but they didn't complete it properly. Her senior, Kim, who is also the company boss, often scolds her for various reasons. Sue-hyeon explains that she recently moved into a new flat, and to shift her belongings, she had taken a day off yesterday. During her absence, the team made the incorrect installation, and the boss says, did I ever give you permission to take leave? You should have shifted after work hours. Now, because of you, the entire work is ruined. What should I do now? Before Sue-hyeon could say anything, he adds, you will have to cover the loss yourself. It will be deducted from your salary. Sue-hyeon understands her mistake and even agrees to the salary deduction. However, she finds one thing very strange. The way her boss scolds her doesn't seem professional. It feels personal, like when he calls her by her first name instead of addressing her formally. While returning, her colleague Ja tells her, I think the boss likes you. That's why he keeps finding excuses to reprimand you. Sue-hyeon finds this ridiculous and says, if someone likes me, why would they scold me all the time? While returning, Sue-hyeon shares that ever since her shifting, her washing machine has stopped working, and the repair cost is coming out to 5 lakh won. She says, for just a little more, I could buy a new one. Ja suggests, why don't you get a used product? I recently bought a second-hand microwave for 1/4 of the cost, and it's working perfectly fine. Soo-hee likes this idea. Meanwhile, we see the college guy styling his hair, excited because a girl is coming to buy the iMac. But his excitement is crushed when, instead of the girl, a man stands at the door. The man says, I'm her brother. She was busy, so she sent me instead. Disheartened, the college student reluctantly completes the iMac deal with him. But then, the buyer suddenly pulls out a knife and murders him on the spot. The college student's phone receives a message from his friend, saying, Bro, how was the date? Did you talk to the girl or not? In response, the killer replies, it went great. I'm now heading to Busan with her. We'll catch up later. On the other side, Sue-hyeon is working late because her boss asked her to stay back. Just then, Kim arrives, offering her drinks and asking her to take a break. During their conversation, she mentions her washing machine problem. Kim offers to help, saying, I used to be an engineer, fixing this is a piece of cake for me. However, after some time, when he fails to fix the washing machine, he awkwardly admits, I was a civil engineer, and this is an electrical product. To this, Sue-hyeon says, Sir, that's it. You can't fix it. Meanwhile, the psychopathic serial killer had made the college student's home his hideout. He sold all of the student's belongings as second-hand items, including his iMac. One of those products, a washing machine, is listed for sale, and Sue-hyeon comes across its ad. Seeing it priced so low, she decides to buy it. She pays in advance and texts her address to the seller. By evening, the washer is delivered to her home. However, during installation, the serviceman tells her, this is defective. Sue-hyeon immediately tries to message the seller, only to find that their account has disappeared from the app. At that moment, she realizes she's been scammed. She rushes to file a complaint with the officers, who assure her, "We'll start searching for them soon." Frustrated, she asks, "How long will it take?" They reply, "About 3 to 4 months. Shocked, she says, "It'll take that long to catch him? When will I get my money back?" They respond, not to catch him, but to start the investigation. Realizing she won't get any help here, she leaves disappointed. Finally, Sue-hyeon decides to buy a new washing machine. She thinks to herself, "If I had bought it earlier, none of this would have happened." However, since the delivery was scheduled for 2 days later, she had no choice but to get her clothes washed at a laundry service in the meantime. While on the way to the laundromat, the bag holding her clothes tears, and all her clothes fall onto the road. A student passing by sees this and laughs at her before walking away. At this moment, Sue-hyeon feels deeply frustrated and disappointed with her life. Determined to take revenge on the scammer, she puts all her effort into tracking him down. Eventually, she discovers that the scammer is changing IDs and messaging people to sell his defective products. Seeing this infuriates her, so she starts leaving messages under his listed products, warning others, "Do not buy his products. They're all defective, and he's a fraud." This prompts the scammer to message her angrily, saying, "Stop doing this, or I'll do something to you that you can't even imagine." She dismisses his threat and replies, "Do whatever you want. I'll make sure to teach you a lesson. I've already filed a complaint with the officers, and they'll catch you soon." He says, "Fine, now watch what happens next." The following day, after the usual scolding from her boss, Sue-hyeon has lunch with JA. Suddenly, she starts receiving multiple calls one after another. Each caller asks the same thing, "Are you giving away your washing machine for free?" Shocked, Sue-hyeon wonders, "Why would I give away my brand new washing machine for free?" She quickly checks her account and discovers that someone has listed her washing machine as a free giveaway, using her name and number. Surprised and frustrated, she calls everyone back to clarify the situation. Exhausted, she goes home to rest for a while, thinking it was a tiring day, but this was only the beginning. Suddenly, her doorbell rings. When she opens it, a delivery man is standing there with a food order. Confused, she says, "I didn't order anything." The delivery man replies, "The order was placed using this phone number." He shows her the number, and to her shock, it's her own number. The delivery address is also her exact location. Moments later, more delivery men start arriving, one after another, with various orders. Seeing this, Sue-hyeon begins to understand she's dealing with a psychopath. The next day, before leaving the house, Sue-hyeon sticks a note on the door saying, "Please do not deliver any orders here." She then goes straight to the officers to file a complaint, stating that the scammer has crossed the line. After hearing her, the officers suggest, "It's possible that this is the work of 2 different people, one who scammed you and the other who is now harassing you." The officer discusses the matter with his junior, Officer NA, about how scams related to online products have been increasing rapidly. Following this, they decide to check the scammer's address that Sue-hyeon had mentioned in her complaint. When they reach the address, the landlady informs them, this flat belongs to a college student who hasn't been home for several days. The officer asks, "Can you give me the key? I need to check inside the flat." The landlady refuses, saying, "He'll be very angry if you go inside." The officer then asks for the student's phone number, which the landlady provides, and forwards it to Officer NA so that they can pull up the call history. Back at Sue-hyeon's apartment, while opening the door, she notices that the note she had put up for the delivery men is now missing. Panicked, she rushes outside. In the next scene, the officers arrive at the flat, and after checking the CCTV footage, they spot the scammer's car. However, the car's license plate number is unclear. Just then, more delivery men arrive, delivering food to the apartments. The officers stop them, telling them to leave, assuring them that they will soon catch the scammer. However, they have no idea how they'll accomplish this. Later that night, Sue-hyeon is talking to JA, and as he leaves, she asks, "Would you please stay tonight?" JA responds, "If I stay, my husband will think something else." As JA leaves in a taxi, Sue-hyeon notices a delivery man behind him. To her shock, this man is none other than the scammer. The next day, when Sue-hyeon is about to leave for work, she sees a man standing outside her door. Startled, she asks him who he is. He tells her, I'm here to install CCTV. The officers sent me. Afterwards, while Sue-hyeon is at work, she receives a message from her mom, asking how the shifting went. Her mom then mentions that she wants to buy a new AC, but her credit card isn't working. She asks if Sue-hyeon can pay for it, and she promises to send the money back later. Sue-hyeon is about to pay through the link, but she suddenly feels uneasy and messages her mom, asking, "How's Dad?" Her mom replies, "He's gone to work." Sue-hyeon then replies, "He passed away years ago." Realizing it's the scammer pretending to be her mom, the scammer responds to her message. "I didn't get a chance to find out about your dad," the scammer replied. This confirms that the scammer has actually reached Sue-hyeon's mom. Later, Sue-hyeon tries to sleep after returning home, but she suddenly hears strange noises. Nervously, she approaches the door, and just then, someone from outside tries to open it and force their way in. Fortunately, Sue-hyeon had latched the door from the inside, or the person could have entered easily. Terrified, Sue-hyeon panics and immediately calls the officers for help. Meanwhile, the man leaves. Shortly after, Sue-hyeon receives a message from the scammer saying, "If you want all of this to stop, transfer 5 million won to me immediately. You have 5 minutes. She begins to think about what to do. She wonders if paying the scammer would make him stop, but before she can decide, time runs out. Suddenly, another strange man appears outside her door. Terrified, Sue-hyeon watches as the man tries to break the door. Just then, Officer Joe arrives and stops him, beating him up badly. During interrogation, the man reveals that someone from a used products website gave him the door code and told him to come here. Meanwhile, the scammer starts sending Sue-hyeon messages detailing her entire life, from her childhood to the present, to show that he knows everything about her. These actions leave Sue-hyeon completely terrified. Desperate, Sue-hyeon pleads with Officer Joe to go to the scammer's address. He responds, "I can't search his house without proper evidence." Frustrated, she says, "So, do I have to live like this for the rest of my life?" Seeing her condition, Officer Joe decides to take action. He visits the address and persuades the landlady to open the door. When they enter, they find the room completely clean, with no belongings left behind, indicating that the scammer has cleared everything out. The officers realize that the scammer had sold everything from the flat. However, they notice that a refrigerator is still there. When they open the fridge, they are shocked to find the body of the flat's owner, the same college student who owned the iMac, inside. He had been murdered by the scammer. Officer Joe is stunned because, until now, they thought the scammer was only a fraudster, but he turns out to be a serial killer as well. The area is immediately declared a crime scene, and a team of officers arrives to investigate. Sue-hyeon, seeing all of this, becomes deeply depressed. She wonders how her life took such a horrifying turn in such a short span of time. As the investigation progresses, the officers meet another woman, Ha-jin, whose case was eerily similar to Sue-hyeon's. Ha-jin explains that she had also ordered some secondhand items, which turned out to be defective and sent by the same scammer. After exposing the scammer in the comment section, he retaliated by sending delivery men and strange people to her house. The scammer himself started visiting her home, stealing items, and eventually attempted to kill her one day. Ha-jin shares how mentally disturbed she became after the ordeal and admits that the trauma still haunts her. She also reveals that the scammer often pretended to be a woman while chatting with his victims. The scene shifts, showing more of the scammer's manipulative tactics. The same strange occurrences start happening to Sue-hyeon. Her clothes go missing, and she finds food items at home that she never bought. Yet, the CCTV footage shows nothing unusual. At work, things aren't going well for her either. Her team doesn't listen to her, her boss doesn't support her, and her personal life is falling apart. When Sue-hyeon returns home one day, she finds her boss, Kim, waiting for her. He says he came to check on her after hearing about the scammer situation. He insists on coming inside to help her, but Sue-hyeon, terrified of letting anyone into her house, refuses. She can't trust anyone now, fearing they could be the killer. At this point, Kim admits that he likes her, which is why he often behaves awkwardly around her. The stress from the scammer's constant harassment overwhelms Sue-hyeon to the point where she has to be hospitalized. She takes a few days off from work to recover. After some bed rest, she returns home, hoping to regain normalcy. However, the scammer calls her again and says, "If you give me 10 million won, I'll end all of this. Otherwise, it's only going to get worse." Sue-hyeon asks, "Will you truly stop after taking the money?" The scammer replies, "Yes, but only if you believe me, and don't even think about telling the police, otherwise, the deal is off. Also, turn off your phone right now." Sue-hyeon switches off her phone and goes back home. When Officer Joe tries to call her, the call doesn't go through. Concerned, he heads to her house to keep watch. However, as he waits outside, a delivery man suddenly attacks him by smashing his car window. Despite Officer Joe's efforts to defend himself, the attacker manages to knock him unconscious. When Officer Na tries to call Officer Joe and gets no response, he rushes to the location. Meanwhile, the scammer sneaks into Sue-hyeon's house by unlocking the door. As he moves closer to capture her, Boss Kim, who had been hiding, suddenly attacks the scammer. Kim says, "Looks like you like her too. Well, she's beautiful, but you see, I like her more, so leave her alone." The psychopath scammer, however, fights back and brutally beats Kim, leaving him in a terrible state. After dealing with Kim, the scammer locks the door and enters Sue-hyeon's room. At this point, both Sue-hyeon and the audience finally see the scammer's face. It's the same person who came to install the CCTV camera in her house. It becomes clear how cleverly he executed his plan. Using the CCTV camera, he had learned Sue-hyeon's door code. Since he installed the camera himself, he also knew how to edit the footage, ensuring that the officers never found any evidence of who entered or exited the house. After this, the scammer tries to take Sue-hyeon away, but Officer Na arrives just in time and chases after him. Meanwhile, Officer Joe regains consciousness and joins the pursuit. A long chase ensues, during which the scammer causes Officer Na's car to crash, resulting in his death. Sue-hyeon is also badly injured during the incident. By the time Officer Joe reaches Sue-hyeon, the scammer has already escaped. Sue-hyeon is the only one who saw his face, but due to her trauma, she cannot provide an exact sketch of him. Officer Joe is devastated by Officer Na's death, as the two were very close. For a while, the incidents stop, leading senior officers to decide to shut down the case. They assume the serial killer might have died since no new cases have been reported. However, Officer Joe refuses to give up. Together with Sue-hyeon and Ja, he devises a plan. Knowing the serial killer's obsession with secondhand products, they create a fake ID for Ja, portraying her as a perfect target who wants to buy secondhand items. They start purchasing various products, hoping to lure the scammer. After several attempts, a man finally arrives to meet Ja. Though the ID belonged to a girl, this man claimed to be her brother. Sue-hyeon immediately recognizes him as the scammer, but he doesn't recognize her because of her changed appearance. The scammer falls into their trap. Sue-hyeon invites him to her flat, saying, "I need to test your music system first. Please wait outside. If everything works fine, I'll come out and pay you." Once inside, Sue-hyeon immediately calls Officer Joe, who had been keeping watch nearby. Seeing the call, Officer Joe rushes to the flat. However, before he can reach, the scammer attacks Sue-hyeon, overpowering her. The scammer hears a noise and leaves Sue-hyeon momentarily to check, giving her a chance to lock him inside. But the scammer is so strong that he breaks the glass and escapes, catching Sue-hyeon again. Just then, Officer Joe arrives and attacks the scammer. A brutal fight ensues, during which the scammer drags Officer Joe to a higher floor and jumps off with him. Both are severely injured, but the scammer survives and tries to kill Officer Joe with a knife. At the last moment, Sue-hyeon intervenes and, with great effort, helps Officer Joe kill the scammer. As the scammer dies, Sue-hyeon collapses to the ground, crying. She feels relieved that the nightmare is over but devastated by how much she lost along the way. A few months later, we see Sue-hyeon's life returning to normal. She has grown stronger and learned to handle her team better at work. Even after the scammer's death, she acknowledges that scams related to second-hand products are unlikely to end anytime soon. The story ends with a message: even though one scammer was stopped, others might emerge. However, there will always be brave officers and citizens willing to face them and put an end to their crimes. The film highlights the dangers of digital scams and their devastating effects. It's a gripping story of resilience, showing how ordinary people and brave officers confront adversity. While justice is served, the message is clear: scams may not end, but vigilance and courage can make a difference.